Seeds of Silence. The first time Rohan Malhotra saw Navya Sharma, she was arguing with a professor about existentialist philosophy in the university courtyard. Her passionate defense of Camus over Sartre had drawn a small crowd, and Rohan found himself captivated not just by her eloquence, but by the animated spark in her eyes. When she finally noticed him watching from beneath the sprawling banyan tree, she'd smiled. A small, private gesture that somehow felt like an invitation. "You looked amused?" she said later when they bumped into each other at the campus coffee shop. "Impressed, actually," Rohan corrected, gathering courage from somewhere unknown. "I've never heard anyone defend the absurd with such joy." Their conversation flowed into evening, then into weeks, then seasons. Navya was brilliant, unpredictable, a literature student with dreams of becoming a travel writer. Rohan, steadier and more methodical in his engineering studies, found himself drawn to her spontaneity. They balanced each other perfectly. "We're like a chemical equation," he'd joke. "You're the catalyst that makes everything more interesting." For 3 years, they created a world together. Midnight discussions about the universe. Weekend trips to coastal towns where Navya would photograph abandoned buildings, while Rohan sketched architectural improvements in his worn notebook. They planned futures, her writing from different corners of the world, him designing sustainable buildings, meeting in the middle wherever that might be. "Promise we'll never become boring," Navya whispered one night as they lay beneath the stars on the university rooftop. "Promise we'll always surprise each other." Rohan promised. It was easy to promise her anything. Their final semester arrived with job offers and possibilities. Rohan accepted a position with an architectural firm in Bangalore, while Navya applied for writing fellowships. They planned to make it work, regardless of distance. Then came the day when Navya didn't show up for their weekly dinner. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her roommate Priya hadn't seen her since morning. By midnight, panic had settled into Rohan's chest like concrete. 3 days later, he received a text. "I need space. Please don't contact me." Just 8 words. Clinical, detached. Nothing like the woman who had written him poems on cafe napkins and left elaborate notes hidden in his textbooks. Rohan tried everything. Desperate emails. Messages to mutual friends. He even traveled to her hometown in Dehradun, only to have her parents look at him with confusion and concern. "She told us you broke up months ago," her father said, the pity, in his eyes almost worse than the words themselves. Weeks passed, then months. Rohan moved to Bangalore but couldn't focus on his new job. He searched social media constantly, called her number until it was disconnected. He sent letters to addresses that returned them unopened. "She's ghosted you," his roommate Vikram finally said bluntly. "It happens. You need to move on." But how do you move on from someone who vanished without explanation? There was no closure, no final argument, no gradual drifting apart, just a sudden, yawning absence where once there had been certainty. Rohan's designs at work began reflecting his emotional state. Buildings with sudden gaps, structures that looked complete from one angle, but revealed missing sections from another. His boss noticed. "Personal problems shouldn't affect professional output," he warned. At night, Rohan would dream of Navya returning, explaining everything with some dramatic but understandable reason. Perhaps she'd been recruited for some secret writing assignment. Maybe family troubles had overwhelmed her. Sometimes, in his darkest moments, he wondered if she'd simply grown bored of him. The first anniversary of her disappearance arrived like a thundercloud. Rohan called in sick to work and spent the day staring at their photographs, tracing the outline of her smile with his finger, searching for clues he might have missed. That evening, he wrote one final email. "Wherever you are, I hope you're surprising someone." I'm letting go now. He didn't expect a response. After a year of silence, he'd finally accepted there wouldn't be one. The healing path. The monsoon season washed over Bangalore, cleansing the city with torrential downpours that matched Rohan's emotional state. He moved through life mechanically, his days a blur of architectural drawings and nights of restless sleep. His colleagues stopped inviting him for after-work gatherings, tired of his distant gaze and half-hearted participation. Only his boss, Mr. Desai, seemed to understand the depth of his struggle. Heartbreak is like designing a building, Mr. Desai told him one evening as they reviewed blueprints. You need a strong foundation before you can create something beautiful again. 18 months after Navya's disappearance, Rohan's parents convinced him to visit home in Delhi for Diwali. The familiar chaos of family, the warm glow of diyas, and his mother's persistent attempts to feed him just one more laddu gradually awakened something in him. He caught himself laughing genuinely at his cousin's jokes, the sound almost foreign to his ears. "Beta, you need to plant new seeds," his grandmother whispered, her wrinkled hand squeezing his. "A garden doesn't grow if you keep watering only the memory of flowers." Back in Bangalore, Rohan forced himself to join a weekend architectural heritage tour. The guide, Tara Menon, spoke with such passion about the city's historical structures that Rohan found himself asking questions, engaging for the first time in months. Tara was an architectural historian, practical and straightforward, with an encyclopedic knowledge of South Indian temple design and a laugh that seemed to bubble up from some inexhaustible source of joy. "You have an architect's eye," she noted after he pointed out a unique feature on an ancient doorway. "Most people miss that detail." "I am an architect," Rohan admitted, "though lately not a very inspired one." Tara tilted her head, studying him with curious brown eyes. "Architecture is about seeing possibilities in empty spaces. Maybe you need to look at different spaces." Something about her practical wisdom resonated with him. When she mentioned another tour the following weekend, Rohan found himself agreeing to attend. Their friendship developed slowly, deliberately, so different from the whirlwind intensity he'd experienced with Navya. Tara was grounded where Navya had been ethereal, consistent where Navya had been unpredictable. She researched historical buildings with the same methodical approach that Rohan used for his designs. They complemented each other professionally first, collaborating on an article about sustainable adaptations of historical structures. 6 months into their friendship, Rohan realized he'd gone an entire day without thinking about Navya. "You seem lighter," Vikram observed over dinner. "Less like you're carrying the weight of someone's ghost." Rohan considered this. "I think I'm finally accepting that some questions don't have answers." When Rohan and Tara's relationship evolved from professional to personal, it happened naturally, a seamless transition marked by longer conversations, shared meals, and eventually intertwined fingers as they walked through the city they both loved. Tara never pushed, never demanded to know everything about his past. When he finally told her about Navya one rainy evening, she listened without judgment. "She shaped part of who you are," Tara said simply, "but she doesn't define who you'll become." With Tara, Rohan rediscovered joy in the everyday. The perfect symmetry of a well-designed building, the satisfaction of solving structural problems, the comfort of companionable silence. Their relationship wasn't built on grand gestures or intense emotions, but on mutual respect, shared interests, and genuine care. 3 years after Navya's disappearance, Rohan's career flourished. His design for a sustainable community center won a prestigious award, and he was promoted to lead architect at his firm. Tara's academic career similarly thrived as she published a well-received book on architectural conservation. "We make a good team," Tara said one evening, as they sat on her balcony, planning a trip to visit a series of ancient temples in Tamil Nadu. "Professionally and personally." Rohan looked at her. Steady, brilliant Tara, who had never once made him doubt her feelings or intentions, and realized with quiet certainty that he loved her. Not with the consuming intensity he'd felt for Navya, but with something deeper, more enduring. When he proposed 6 months later, it wasn't an impulsive decision, but one made with clear-eyed certainty. The vintage sapphire ring, chosen for its architectural setting rather than flashy diamonds, seemed perfect for Tara's practical elegance. "Are you sure?" she asked after saying yes, her eyes searching his. "Is your heart truly free?" Rohan thought about the journey from brokenness to healing. "I'll always carry parts of my past, but my future, that belongs to us." Their engagement celebration was intimate. Close friends and family gathered at their favorite rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. As Rohan watched Tara describing their wedding plans to his parents, he felt a sense of peace he'd almost forgotten was possible. "You deserve this happiness," Mr. Desai told him, clapping him on the shoulder. "Some buildings collapse so that stronger ones can be built in their place." Rohan smiled, raising his glass to his mentor. "To stronger foundations." The wedding was set for 6 months later, a spring ceremony combining elements of their different cultural backgrounds. They found a perfect venue, selected a date, and began sending invitations. For the first time in years, Rohan felt complete anticipation rather than lingering dread when thinking about the future. Then the email arrived. It was a Thursday evening. Tara was visiting her parents in Kerala to discuss wedding arrangements. Rohan was working late, finalizing designs for a new project. The notification appeared innocuously among work messages and newsletter subscriptions. The subject line read simply, "I found my way back. The sender, Navya Sharma." Shadows. Return. Rohan stared at the email for nearly an hour before opening it, his finger hovering over the screen as though the message might bite. When he finally tapped it, Navya's words spilled across his screen like spilled ink. 4 years is a long time to be lost. I've been trying to find my way back, to myself, to the life I abandoned, to you. We need to talk. Please. Attached was a photo of them from university days, Rohan's arm around her shoulders, both laughing at some forgotten joke. The sight of her face, those familiar eyes, that once-beloved smile, sent a physical shock through his system. Rohan closed his laptop without responding and called Vikram, who rushed over with emergency whiskey and practical advice. "You don't owe her anything," Vikram insisted, pouring Rohan another drink. "Not a response, not closure, certainly not a meeting." But curiosity and unresolved questions gnawed at him. After 3 sleepless nights, Rohan replied with a brief message agreeing to meet once, in a public cafe during daylight hours, with the explicit understanding that he was engaged and moving forward with his life. Her response came immediately. "Thank you, that's all I ask." Rohan told Tara about the email the next day, his voice steady even as his hands trembled. "I need answers," he explained. "For myself, for us. To fully close that chapter." Tara's expression remained composed, though her eyes reflected concern. "I understand. Just be careful. Reopening old wounds doesn't always lead to healing. The cafe Rohan chose was busy, neutral territory, a place neither he nor Navya had frequented during their relationship. He arrived early, selecting a table with clear sightlines to both exits, feeling strangely like he was preparing for an ambush rather than a conversation. When Navya walked in, Rohan almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the free-spirited girl, with flowing clothes and bohemian accessories. This Navya wore a crisp business suit, her once wild curls tamed into a sleek bob. Only her eyes remained the same, intense, searching, though now shadowed with something new. Pain, perhaps, or calculation. "You look well," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Success suits you." Rohan remained silent, waiting for the explanation she'd kept from him for 4 years. Navya sighed, fingers tapping nervously against her coffee cup. "I got married," she finally said. "Right after graduation. Raj was a family friend, older, established. My parents arranged it after they found out about certain things. And you couldn't tell me this? A simple goodbye was too much to ask?" Rohan's voice remained controlled, though each word carried the weight of years of confusion. Raj was controlling, jealous. He monitored my communications, isolated me from friends, classic signs I was too naive to recognize. She gave a bitter laugh. "I became someone I didn't recognize. By the time I realized what was happening, it seemed easier to let you think I'd simply abandoned you than to admit I'd chosen so poorly." The story continued. A divorce finalized 6 months ago, therapy, reconnection with her passion for writing, a recent job offer in Bangalore that felt like fate. "When I heard through mutual friends that you were here too, it seemed like the universe was giving us another chance." "There is no us, Navya," Rohan said firmly. "I'm engaged." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, then determination. "Of course. I understand. I thought you deserved an explanation. Perhaps friendship is possible, eventually." They parted with awkward formality, Navya pressing her business card into his hand. "In case you ever want to talk again." Rohan recounted the meeting to Tara that evening, relieved to have answers, but unsettled by the encounter. Tara listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions without judgment. "Do you feel closure?" she asked finally. "I think so," Rohan replied, believing it was true. 3 days later, Navya appeared at his office building as he was leaving work. "I was in the area," she explained with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thought I'd say hello." A week after that, she enrolled in the architectural heritage tour Tara was conducting, introducing herself as an old university friend of Rohan's, with such natural charm that Tara invited her to join them for dinner afterward. Throughout the meal, Navya expertly wove stories of their university days, subtly emphasizing their deep connection while casting curious glances at Tara's engagement ring. "Rohan always said he couldn't imagine marrying before 30, she remarked with practiced casualness. "But I suppose the right person changes everything." Walking home later, Tara's hand felt slightly stiffer in his. "She still has feelings for you," she observed quietly. "That's her problem, not ours," Rohan insisted. But the problem grew. Navya began appearing everywhere. At industry events Rohan attended, at the coffee shop near his office, even jogging in his neighborhood. Each encounter seemed coincidental, each conversation innocuous on the surface, yet laden with reminiscences and inside jokes that excluded Tara. When Vikram reported seeing Navya intently questioning their mutual friends about Rohan and Tara's relationship, the pattern became impossible to ignore. "She's not here by coincidence," Rohan realized, dread settling in his stomach. "She's here for me." The final confirmation came when Tara received an anonymous email containing photographs of Rohan and Navya together in university. Intimate, moments captured in pixels, along with a message. "Ask him about the promises he made before you accept his new ones." The shadow of the past had returned, and it was deliberately, methodically, spreading darkness across the future Rohan had so carefully rebuilt. "Tangled truths. She's trying to sabotage us," Rohan said, pacing across Tara's living room after she showed him the anonymous email. "This is calculated." Tara sat perfectly still, her historian's mind visibly cataloging details, analyzing patterns. "Have you given her any reason to think there's hope?" "Absolutely not," Rohan insisted, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "I've been clear about my commitment to you." Tara nodded, but something had shifted in her eyes. Not doubt, exactly, but caution. People usually don't wage campaigns without some encouragement. The implication stung. Are you suggesting I've somehow invited this? I'm suggesting we need to understand her motivation before we can address it, Tara replied, her voice remaining measured even as her fingers twisted nervously around her engagement ring. The following day, Rohan confronted Navya directly, asking to meet at the same cafe. She arrived looking somehow vulnerable and predatory simultaneously. Designer clothes perfectly arranged, eyes rimmed with carefully applied makeup that suggested recent tears. "You sent Tara those photos," he stated without preamble. Navya didn't deny it. She deserves to know the depth of what we shared, what we could share again. "There is no again," Rohan said firmly. "Whatever we had ended when you disappeared. What I have with Tara is different. It's built on honesty and trust. Is it?" Navya leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Have you told her everything about us? About the promises we made? About how you said no one would ever understand you the way I did?" Rohan felt a chill. Those were indeed his words, spoken in the passionate certainty of first love, words that, taken out of context and presented to Tara, could seem damning. "Stop this, Navya. Whatever you're hoping to accomplish, I made a mistake," she interrupted, reaching for his hand, across the table. "I've spent 4 years realizing what I threw away. Doesn't everyone deserve a second chance?" Rohan pulled his hand back. "Not at the expense of someone else's happiness." Navya's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Is she really who you want? This museum curator who plans everything down to the minute? The Rohan I knew craved adventure, spontaneity. We were going to write our own rules, remember?" "People change," Rohan replied, standing to leave. "I've changed. Whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop." Navya's parting words followed him. Out. "It's not a game when your heart is involved. The weeks leading up to the wedding became a minefield." Navya's tactics grew more sophisticated, accidentally running into Tara's parents during their visit to Bangalore, sharing carefully edited versions of their history with mutual friends who then questioned Rohan's commitment, even sending a handwritten journal supposedly documenting their continued communication during the years she was gone. "These messages aren't real," Rohan told Tara, showing her the fabricated journal entries. "I never wrote these." Tara examined the pages with scholarly precision. "The handwriting is convincing. If I didn't know better—" "But you do know better," Rohan pressed. "You know me." Tara nodded, but doubt had begun its insidious work. Each new revelation from Navya required explanation. Each explanation sounded increasingly defensive. Their relationship, once characterized by comfortable certainty, now felt fragile, constantly under examination. "Perhaps we should postpone the wedding," Tara suggested one evening after another anonymous delivery. A USB drive containing voice recordings of Rohan and Navya from university, edited to sound recent, "just until this situation resolves." The words hit Rohan like physical blows. That's exactly what she wants, to create enough doubt that we fall apart. "Is it doubt or reasonable caution?" Tara countered, her usual composure fraying. "Every day brings some new piece of your past into our present. I'm starting to feel like I'm competing with a ghost." "You're not," Rohan insisted. "What Navya and I had was a different lifetime, but the seed of uncertainty had taken root. When Tara began checking Rohan's phone while he showered, when she suggested they take separate cars to events where Navya might appear, when she started questioning discrepancies in his recollections of the past, Rohan realized how effectively Navya had poisoned the well of their trust. The situation escalated when Navya approached Tara's department head at the university, claiming professional interest in architectural conservation, but subtly dropping hints about Tara's complicated personal situation affecting her work. The department head, already skeptical about Tara's upcoming sabbatical for the honeymoon, began scrutinizing her research more critically. "She's threatening my career now," Tara said, voice trembling with rare anger. "This has gone beyond personal vendettas. Rohan's own professional life wasn't immune either." Navya had secured a position at a rival architectural firm and began attending client meetings where she could undermine Rohan's proposals with barbed comments about his emotional inconsistency. Their friends tried to help. Vikram suggested restraining orders. Priya offered to speak with Navya woman to woman. But legal options required evidence of direct threats, and Navya was too clever to be confronted directly. "She's systematically dismantling everything we've built," Rohan realized during a particularly tense dinner with Tara. The easy conversation they once enjoyed had been replaced by careful navigation around sensitive topics, both exhausted from constant vigilance. That night, lying awake beside Tara's sleeping form, Rohan made a decision. He couldn't allow Navya's obsession to destroy what he and Tara had worked so hard to build. Something had to break this cycle, even if it meant confronting the past in ways he'd never imagined necessary. The wedding was now just 3 weeks away. Invitations sent, venue secured, arrangements finalized. Yet instead of joyful anticipation, both Rohan and Tara moved through preparations with grim determination, as though preparing for battle rather than celebration. "Do you still want this?" Rohan asked Tara one evening, gesturing to the wedding. Plans spread across her dining table. Tara looked up, eyes tired but resolute. "I want us. I'm just not certain we can have that with her shadow hanging over everything." Rohan nodded, the plan already forming in his mind. "Then it's time to step out of the shadow once and for all." Crossroads of the Heart. The wedding invitations had been printed on handmade paper embedded with wildflower seeds, Tara's idea, symbolic of new beginnings that would continue to grow. Rohan held one now, tracing the embossed lettering with his finger as he waited in the quiet university courtyard. The same courtyard where he'd first seen Navya arguing about philosophy years ago. Some circles needed to be closed where they began. When Navya arrived, her smile faltered slightly at seeing the serious expression on Rohan's face. "You wanted to talk somewhere private? I'm hoping that's a good sign." "I wanted neutral ground," Rohan corrected, gesturing to the empty bench beside him. "And witnesses." Before she could question this, Tara emerged from behind the ancient banyan tree, followed by Vikram, Priya, and several other friends who had known both Rohan and Navya during university days. Even Mr. Desai stood at a respectful distance, his presence lending gravity to the moment. "What is this?" Navya asked, her composure slipping for the first time since her return. "Clarity," Rohan replied. "Something all of us need." He had prepared for this moment carefully, gathering evidence of Navya's manipulations, screenshots of the anonymous emails traced back to her accounts, testimony from friends she'd attempted to influence, even security footage showing her leaving, packages at Tara's office. But as he looked at her now, seeing the panic beneath her carefully constructed facade, he realized the evidence was almost secondary. "I loved you once," he began, his voice steady. "Completely, unreservedly. When you disappeared, it nearly destroyed me. For years, I wondered what I'd done wrong, what signs I'd missed." Navya's eyes darted between the gathered witnesses, calculating her response. "I've explained why I had to leave." "You have," Rohan acknowledged, "and I believe parts of your story. But what I can't accept is your decision to return with the explicit purpose of destroying what Tara and I have built." A flush spread across Navya's cheeks. "That's not—" "It is," Tara interjected gently, stepping forward. "And I think I understand why. When you finally escaped your controlling marriage, You wanted to reclaim the life you'd lost. Rohan represents the last time you felt truly free, truly yourself. Navia's shoulders slumped slightly, the first genuine reaction they'd seen from her. "You don't know what it was like," she whispered. "Losing yourself piece by piece until you don't recognize your own reflection." "I can't imagine," Tara agreed. "And I'm truly sorry for your pain. But trying to reclaim your past by destroying someone else's future isn't healing. It's transferring your trauma." Rohan watched something shift in Navia's expression. A crack in the perfect mask she'd constructed. For a moment, he glimpsed the frightened, wounded person beneath the calculated exterior. "I thought if I could just make you remember what we had," Navia began. "I remember," Rohan interrupted gently. "I remember everything, the good and the bad. But memory isn't the same as present reality. What Tara and I have isn't a replacement for what we lost. It's something entirely new that deserves its own chance to thrive." Priya stepped forward, putting a hand on Navia's shoulder. "We want to help you, Navia. Real help. Therapy, support groups, friendship without manipulation. But this campaign against Rohan and Tara needs to end." The courtyard fell silent as Navia absorbed these words. For a terrible moment, Rohan feared she might simply laugh, dismiss their intervention, and continue her vendetta with even more determination. Instead, tears, genuine this time, spilled down her cheeks. "I don't know how to be anymore," she admitted, the words seeming to surprise even her. "Everything I planned, everything I believed about my future, it's all gone. Seeing you move on when I'm still broken, it felt unfair." "Life rarely distributes fairness equally," Mr. Desai observed from where he stood. "But we can choose whether to perpetuate that inequity." Vikram produced a folder containing information on trauma counseling services and a legal agreement Rohan's lawyer had drafted. Not punitive, but establishing clear boundaries. "We're not here to punish you," he explained. "We want everyone to heal." Later, after Navia had left with Priya, who had volunteered to stay with her through this difficult transition, Rohan and Tara walked slowly through the campus grounds, processing what had transpired. "Do you think it worked?" Tara asked, her hand warm in his. "I don't know," Rohan admitted. "Healing isn't linear, but confronting the situation directly, with compassion rather than accusations, it felt right." Tara stopped beneath a flowering jacaranda tree, purple blossoms creating a canopy above them. "When you were speaking to her, did you feel any regret? Any lingering what-ifs?" Rohan considered the question carefully, owing Tara nothing less than complete honesty. Not regret, no, but sadness for what happened to her, for the bright, passionate person who got lost along the way. "That's one of the things I love about you," Tara said, touching his face. "Your capacity for empathy never diminishes your clarity." 3 weeks later, they stood together beneath a mandap adorned with architectural elements that honored both their cultural heritages and professional passions. Tara wore her grandmother's jewelry, reimagined by a contemporary designer, tradition and innovation intertwined, just like their relationship. As they exchanged vows, Rohan noticed an envelope at the gift table bearing handwriting he recognized. Inside was a simple card containing 3 sentences. "Be happy. Be true. Be better than I could be." It was signed simply, N. Not an apology, not quite a blessing, but an acknowledgement. A step toward healing. That evening, as they danced beneath strings of lights in the garden reception, Tara leaned close to whisper, "I've been thinking about what true strength is." "And what conclusion did the historian reach?" Rohan asked, smiling. "That it's found not in avoiding pain or protecting ourselves from vulnerability," she replied, "but in having the courage to rebuild even when we know everything can be lost." Rohan thought about all the paths that had led to this moment, The painful ones and the joyful ones, the detours and the direct routes. Then I suppose we're both stronger than we realized. As they moved across the floor, surrounded by loved ones who had witnessed their journey, Rohan felt a sense of completion. That had nothing to do with returning to the past and everything to do with embracing the present. The shadows hadn't disappeared entirely. Such things rarely do. But they had taken their proper place, acknowledged, but no longer defining the landscape of his heart. In the soft evening light, with Tara's hand steady in his, Rohan understood that true love wasn't about perfect beginnings or dramatic rescues. It was about choosing each other, day after day, at every crossroads of the heart.